Hello and welcome to Insight. I'm Amandra Bhatt. Today we focus on the Nuclear Security Summit that began on Monday in The Hague. 53 countries will be focusing on how to limit the world's stockpile of nuclear material and how to prevent nuclear weapons from falling into the wrong hands. Today we discuss what to expect from this summit, the progress that has been made so far, and how real is the threat of nuclear terrorism. And to discuss the same, we are joined in our studios by three distinguished guests. Please welcome Dr. Sreeram Chaulia. He's a Dean with the Jindal School of Global Affairs. Welcome to Insight, Professor Chaulia. I'd like to begin with you. First thing first, there's been a lot of talk in the media about how this summit is going to be overshadowed by US-Russia standoff that's been going on over Crimea. What do you think?
It shouldn't be. Nuclear Security Summit has its own value and importance in the global security architecture, the institutions. It's been 4 years now since it's been launched, and it's a biannual thing. And ideally, it should not be overtaken by momentary crises, however grave they are. Because this agenda is larger than Ukraine or Russia or about Europe, because this is a global agenda, and the idea is to try and make some progress on securing as well as reducing fissile materials, which is always at a risk of falling into the wrong hands. So I think, to be fair, the Security Summit has made some progress over the last 4 years. It was an American signature Obama initiative, and since then more countries have joined it, and I think there must be some substantive discussion and outcome. More seems to be happening on the sidelines, with regard to the Crimean crisis and Ukraine and Russia's excommunication from the G8 and so on. So ideally, at least the technical work would have been done before the heads of state and the senior leaders would have arrived at The Hague. So hopefully the real concrete work of containing the threat of nuclear terrorism as well as nuclear proliferation should come up. I must mention here that the summit is not necessarily a solution to the larger issue of horizontal and vertical proliferation of nuclear weapons, or even universal disarmament, which are bigger goals. But at least a minimal step. Obama began his presidency talking about a world without nuclear weapons altogether. Since then, at least some progress has been made. The figures are looking good. One of the statistics says 39 to 25. There has been a reduction in the number of countries with highly enriched uranium and plutonium. So I guess we must encourage these initiatives. Multilateral organizations like these institutions can bring about marginal progress. And I should not be over-politicized by the differences, because at the end of the day, even US and Russia are so central for bilateral reduction in nuclear weaponry, that if they are at loggerheads, doesn't speak well for these global initiatives.
Professor Chaulia, I'll continue with you. How potent is the threat of nuclear terrorism? Because the main focus of this summit is to prevent or to deliberate on how to prevent this nuclear material from falling into the hands of terrorists, because after that it's very easy to make a bomb.
The good news is no non-state actor has yet obtained the capacity to weaponize nuclear material. They may have gotten hold of bits and fragments. As far as most open source intelligence goes, Al-Qaeda had been trying for a very long time, and I think the Pakistanis were close to some of the so-called rogue elements in the Pakistani establishment had met bin Laden and so on, and they were attempting to transfer. So far, there's no indication that they've succeeded. The other, of course, is in Japan, the Aum Shinrikyo and certain right-wing fascist groups had also attempted, but not successful. The bad news is that there are some very daredevil type of Fedayeen type of attacks that keep happening on very high security installations, especially in Pakistan. And some people in Pakistan argue that the Americans have basically got a plan. This has been talked about for the last 10 years. Denied by the government, but a plan to secure the weapons or even whisk them out in the event of a very potentially risky attack on a base that could lead to material and weapons falling in the hands of armed jihadists. So that's been the possibility. The scary part about Pakistan is that because it's got this ongoing insurgency, which has claimed so many lives, including some of these spectacular attacks on naval bases and air force bases and so on, the danger is that they may get hold of it. As far as delivery systems go, I think we are still a far way. I mean, think about it. I mean, fighter jets or missiles, which can drop atomic weapons, or submarines, are, I think, pretty far away from terrorist groups, because those require, transfer of those kinds of advanced know-how requires, I think, a lot of rogue states. And we have a few that are so-called problematic. The problem with the nuclear security summit is that Iran and North Korea are not even there. And these are seen as one of the potential sources through which some of these groups might get hold of these materials. So in a way, it's like preaching to the choir. Most of these who are coming are already converted, they believe in it, they want to strengthen it. Pakistan can be called an exception. Pakistan has been a problem overall in the nuclear proliferation regime, as you know. They have been trying to block the fissile material cutoff treaty for a long time. Sole individual state, because their argument is that the Indians are getting uranium from the civil nuclear deal, and therefore we have the right to also enrich, and we have to keep on doing this, so we are not going to sign on to this FMCT. So that's been in abeyance for a long time under the Conference on Disarmament. So overall, I would say, a lot of focus needs to be played on states that have very fragile polities, that don't have complete control over their territories, and where large-scale insurgencies are happening. I think that is the place where we need to watch out for potential nuclear terrorism to germinate. And as far as so we need to be on the watch. And I think Security Summit does place the emphasis on controlling this. Before the Nuclear Security Summit, the Bush administration had also tried something called a Proliferation Security Initiative, PSI. That was also a multilateral thing. Now more than 100 countries have signed on to it, which was an attempt to interdict contraband nuclear commodities, especially in the high seas. So there the focus not only on non-state but also on states like North Korea. Because remember, under Obama's watch, North Koreans have already tested twice nuclear weapons. And although it's a small arsenal, it's a growing arsenal. Pakistan, of course, as I mentioned, has a reputation of being the fastest growing nuclear arsenal. Fastest growing nuclear arsenal with ongoing multiple insurgencies and the home of Al-Qaeda, that's, I think, a very toxic and dangerous mix. So a lot of emphasis will have to be placed on Pakistan and the responsibility of the state in Pakistan.
But Professor Chaulia, in order to keep these weapons safe, nuclear weapons safe, and to prevent them from falling into the hands of terrorists, the easiest way would be to reduce the stockpile of fissile material that's there in the world. Yeah, and
there's been some modest success on that front. As far as the nuclear security summits go. The only problem is that the states that have already tested nuclear weapons are not, significantly cutting down. So what that means is that, if you look at the statistics, pretty horrific. Russia has got 8,500 warheads, United States 7,700, France 300, China 250, UK 225. Pakistan 120, India 110, Israel 80, and North Korea around 10 or a little less than 10. So, and now because of regional insecurity spirals, the motivation to acquire weapons remains strong in different parts of the world. If the Saudis have been threatening for a long time that if you don't control Iran, we've got to go nuclear. If the Japanese have handed over some of their plutonium to the Americans, it's good news, but nonetheless the fact that North Korea has acquired nuclear weapons means that the right in Japan says that we must have the option eventually to be able to counter it, because we cannot depend on the US nuclear umbrella. So if you look at it, if you do a global scan, it's clear that the impetus and the need to acquire nuclear weapons, some of them believe that it is necessary just for prestige as regional powers, even if there's no security logic to it. So what this means is that the stockpiles are not going down significantly. Russians and the Americans have agreed under New START to bring down to some extent their strategic nuclear warheads and ballistic launchers. But overall, so therefore, that's why the linkage between state and non-state is critical here. I mean, if states continue to possess them, and we are far from what the peace community calls global zero, which is a world without nuclear weapons altogether. And there's, as you know, the old nuclear apartheid between the haves and the have-nots. The have-nots will continue to want to acquire it at some, and the have-nots, as I said before, need not be limited to states. It can be non-state actors as well, who feel that they need to be having the ultimate, not only the deterrent, but the ability to threaten and to compel. So, if you take the case of Ukraine, which has of course been, in a way, it's a distraction, but it's also central, as we had mentioned. And there are some people who have argued in the right in Ukraine that, if we had nuclear weapons, if we had not actually abandoned them, the Russians would not have dared attack and take over Crimea because of mutually assured destruction, right? The Libyans, remember when Gaddafi was overthrown, the same argument was made. I mean, nuclear weapons are also seen as a guarantee for regime security. So it's states, non-state actors, it's a mix of these two. The stockpiles are not coming down, and unfortunately, the push to acquire them and the desire is tremendous.
Okay, but Professor Chaulia, can we expect countries to be completely open and transparent about their nuclear programs and their security on a global level? Because each country would have their own regulatory mechanisms.
I think the military sites, the military nuclear sites, they would not want to reveal their location and their coordinates and their what they contain as much as the civilian ones. As you know, there is a IAEA inspection regime for most of the civilian sites. Already, the coordinates are mapped out. So I think the threat really lies, we must be much more wary of potential breaches in civilian sites, simply because they are known. As far as the military ones go, I mean, they could be under some bunker, under some mountains or some caves, wherever, we don't know. I mean, many countries conceal them pretty well. And they're also very sensitive to them being open for any kind of inspection or verification. But you can also think that compliance is not on the basis of international pressure. Compliance on the basis of real and perceived threat to one's own security. So in that sense, none of these countries that are making non-binding commitments at the Nuclear Security Summit are really petrified of being censured by the international organization. Rather, they are petrified about the potential that, it will be a huge embarrassment if there is a leakage. And two, that there will be tremendous civilian loss to their own facilities and to their property and life on their own soil. So I think self-interest itself should dictate that countries make a larger investment in securing these sites. I think as far as the bases go, the bases, the security of the bases and so on, they have been taking precautions. But let's say, if someone hijacks an aircraft and knows the location, that can be pretty, I don't know whether they have the means to shoot down, for example, a plane that's headed straight to a nuclear installation, So these kind of things have to be watched out for. We need to do more scenarios, more what they call strategic gaming, where you're in a position to be able to say, if this happens, then this, then this, then this. Usually, countries tend to be a little bit complacent because they think that they have it all mapped out and they're okay, in the sense that, especially military sites, high security and nobody can. But we have seen in the past that, Pakistan is the best example. Many high security installations have been, easily overcome by armed actors with some insider collaboration. So this insider collaboration, for example, there were some activists, peace and environment activists who breached a US nuclear facility recently. Just to make a point, they were not terrorists, but it just showed, that even in so-called advanced countries where they have thousands of nuclear weapons, it's not necessarily true that, they can secure them so well. So it's
and
good
they
to
were senior citizens, 80 plus.
They were 80 plus. So it doesn't require someone who has bad intentions and who's more able-bodied to do it and more destructively. So the point is, I think these security summits are good because they are like reminders that we need to be alert and watchful. And the states themselves will have to, I think, take the onus essentially for their own national security reasons. This is not just about global governance. It's a basic national security problem. So at two levels. One is, of course, to be seen as a good global citizen and to be contributing to good cause. The second level is domestic security, and securing your own citizens.
Right.
We need to make a bigger effort.
All right. Well, I'm afraid I have to leave it at that. I have to wrap up this discussion here. I'd like to thank all my guests for coming to the studios. It was a pleasure having you all here. That's it for now in this edition of Insight. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.